Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 435. I am your host, Loren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy holidays. I get to say that inclusively. Our Jewish friends have just started Hanukkah. First lighting was last night, and I know with all things considered, uh, everyone has these concerns over how to. This is a happy time. As a matter of fact, um, uh, I've been told, feedback wise, my wife being one of them, if not the most direct one, that I have been slightly negative about my discussions as to the issues and problems we have when it comes to marketing and the struggles with marketing and the concerns I have about the best facilitation for marketing. And uh, that's not the time of year to be doing this. This is the time of year to be happy. It is our holiday time. It is the one time that we all rely upon to kind of compensate as a fulcrum the all the things that happen during the course of the year. We're wrapping up another year, and then anybody that gets older feels they pass all too quickly and even faster as time goes on. And I'm one of those. It seems just yesterday we were starting this year, and now here we are at its conclusion, or soon to be. And we are in the holiday periods. And for us as hospitality marketers, this is a wonderful time because it's not that things are on autopilot by any stretch of the imagination. They're not, but they are a little bit more preordained. There is a little bit more specificity to what we do for marketing and how we approach marketing, because at this time we can't not be holiday centric. We can't be talking about summer events and so forth unless it's a preclusion to us offering some special deal because of the holidays. There is a mandate at this time of year that whatever we discuss has to be buoyantly related to holidays. And this holiday, I would have to say, more needs it than some other holidays in times past. Although we can look at different years and say that we equally needed it then too. Um, the idea is we have to look at what we're doing, not from the context of just getting it done, but how best to get it done. What is our real goals? What is our KPIs? What are the things that we are looking to do successfully? And the easiest first answer usually comes from, well, revenue. We want to end the year on a positive note that our prognostications of 2022 came through by the end of 2023. That in spite of the months that we were lower than we thought we would be, and inclusive and happy for the months that we were higher than we expected to be, that hopefully we land somewhere on the mark, very, very close to what we hope 2023 would be in the basis of revenues, not only for our own edifications of being good at what we do, but also for those that rely upon performance bonuses and so forth, sales teams, operational teams, and so forth that do. But notice in my entire dialogue of this, I keep using the word "our." It's a word that doesn't seem to it gets used, but I don't think it gets implemented as much as it should. It has been over time. So we're very polarizing in how we do things, and very much filtered our activities through the benefit or loss ratio to us as an individual. Are we at risk for the decision we make? Are we going to be rewarded for the decision we make? We think of those things. Now, those are natural, inherent things. But it seems like it has taken more of a front row, center stage concept to our topic of the show today. And our topic of the show today is asking the right questions. Now, it sounds very broad and very open ended, but they're all marketing related, but more specifically, how we facilitate our marketing from a positive perspective, keeping in light of what I told you about the reviews of my past shows being very like, we got this gap in our education, we got this and this. We're going to keep it positive and happy today as best we can. Asking the right questions means thoughtfully thinking about what really are our goals. And ours is an inclusive thing, meaning that we have to share the glory of the success, and as any good leader would do, the burden of any failures or shortcomings, drawing it to yourself and deflecting a lot of the negativity to those that were around you that were in support of your cause, especially if you're a decision maker, especially if you're a manager, especially if you're in the role of making those decisions. A good leader absorbs the negativity of anything that went wrong as their responsibility and shares, if not totally shadows, the limelight and gives credit to their team when the success gets reached. We see that in lots of ways. For anybody that watches the NFL, there's always the critique of the post-game interviews of quarterbacks that if any quarterback in any way, for any reason, does not assume responsibility for the team's failure or shortcomings of that game, They're ostracized because that comes with the role as the quarterback. Blaming their defense or blaming their other fellow teammates is a sign of selfishness and not good leadership. We see those in sports indications, but we then go into our own work world and we see that that comes in conflict. A lot of times, as I've brought out negatively before, there is this aversion ratio of close enough for credit and far enough away from the explosion should it fail. The idea of asking the right questions is getting a collective consensus. When you're approaching marketing, there's two actual aspects to any project you're approaching as to the value proposition, its success proposition, its purpose proposition. The people that we're talking to and the people that have to facilitate the talking. And I say people because it's a collective thing. Unless you are the sole person of this, the sole decision maker, the sole production creation, and the sole resultant. And small businesses have that singular multi-hat person. But organizations don't. They have it disseminated into departments and leaderships and team members and oversight. You have a lot of people playing in that field, and you need consensus. You need a collective understanding of what's being done, not a hide and that way. If it fails, nobody knew that it was even happening. If it succeeded, you get to show off, how successful you were for doing something that they were unaware of. And inherently, you get more credit for the fact that you were the lone wolf that did it. I see organizations that don't have good marketing plans, that have soft marketing plans. And this is based on the logic that way there's no accountability, hard accountability, that would hold them to whether they measured up to what they thought they were going to do and how they planned on doing it versus if they didn't. Now, I know that sounds negative, but the idea of it also is if you have been in an environment that is heavily criticized, your risk aversion is very high. You don't want to put yourself in a position to be in that role of being ostracized and or penalized for making decisions that didn't come through. By the same token, a lot of times there may be a lack of confidence in your team in which you don't feel like it can get facilitated. So the burden of its execution, you feel, should stay within only you or the people that you can truly rely upon to do that. That creates division, which we both in our society and in life have become all too familiar with, and that is polarization, us versus them, what we do versus what they do, what we like versus they like. And when we're trying to first come up with the concept of what we're going to share and discuss and how we're going to present it to those that purchase what we do, we need the consensus of all of us to understand that we're together. Together in its success is the carrot on the stick. Taking the burden of those that initiated it from a leadership role is the pillow that they land on. Very metaphorical today. The idea is that you can't succeed at your KPIs, key performance indicators. You can't succeed at your goals if you don't have everyone on your team looking to what those are. You need to identify what are the goals. And I've dealt with a lot of people that, they're first of all, more money. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Ultimately, we want margin performance where we are making money, revenue, profits cover a multitude of sins. However, it can come at the expense of much more tangibly valuable things, and that is guest confidence, guest respect, guest trust, team respect, team performance. Those are the things that you sacrifice for the pure and only goal of revenue, because then anything goes under the filter of whether we can cut the cost and increase the revenue to the detriment of anybody that is either performing the work or the person that has to pay for the resultant. So consensus is about buy-in. Consensus is about sharing how it's envisioned and what is the goals and the KPIs of it so that everybody understands what everyone is trying to work towards. Now, keeping in the desired spirit of being this a positive conversation, I got to experience in a third-party way one of the great joys of being in this industry, and that is a new opening. One of my clients locally, can figure it out from where I live, was kind enough to invite me to watch and participate in their soft opening. And part of that process was asking from a critical eye, what is it that they need to be concerned with? What is it that didn't work right? Whatever was broken, the little things. So and it's easy to point out things like that because not everything's done yet. And that's where I look at things and say, They're probably going to work on it. I'll let them know about it, but this is not like saying, oh, the trash can should be here and this didn't work, whatever. It's more about how are we doing? And the we part that I can give is the biggest compliment of any new opening, the joys, the excitement of the new opening, the chaos of the new openings is the team's sentiment, the team's ambition. As I talked with a client early on, we talked about this is your one and only chance for first impression. Your entire team that you brought on board, everything that you've hyped about their interest and why they applied for the position is in front of them. Nothing has truly gone delusionally wrong. Nothing has gone negatively. And all those things will happen at different levels of impact to the team. Their aspirations of what they want, the reality of what it is, all those begin to solidify as time moves forward and place opens. But at this magical moment of opening, all of that's still in front of everyone. The potential of the excitement of all of the things that are, nothing's gone wrong yet in a way that would diminish that lightness of, well, it's no, of course we haven't figured that out, or that got broke, or that didn't work out the way we wanted to. It gets dismissed so nicely into the world of, we'll do our best, we'll work around it. And that was the compliment I think I gave most about the team that they brought together and the team that they had doing it. Because there's a lot of good leadership has a lot of people that do a lot of things that the team that they manage or they lead over doesn't know all the obstacles that get pushed out of their way. And for them, there was brand people, heavy amount of brand people to make sure that they were successful, heavy amount of management team people that were there to make successful. The presence of the existing properties management team. So you had lots of people that could try to create sandboxes and lines of delineation between their role, their response. I'm the corporate person, you do what I say, kind of thing. And they didn't. What they did was, I need a hand lifting this box. Didn't care who it was, the other person came over and helped. If it was a matter of one team member being asked a question that they weren't too clear on an answer, they were helped, not in a condescending or derogatory way, but in a positive, supportive way. That magic that happens with that, it harks back to when I ran hotels and I had teams that I used to proudly say, impossible only takes a little bit longer to do with this team. And the old adage, if I jumped off a cliff, um, they would be jumping off with me, asking why we jumped off the cliff together. That camaraderie is magical when it comes to asking the right questions. Now, how does those two go together? Because you asked them what they wanted by participating in your team. You asked them what they thought what you were doing was. You made them understand your vision, and they understood it in such a way that they now had a goal. They understood what the purpose of what they thought the place would be in combination to what you thought it would be. And that common consensus is what aligned both of you to knowing that if somebody needed help to pick up a box, then that's what they did. And so because of that, the idea um, of asking the right questions means the honesty of being able to do so. That no question is unaskable. There's not a dumb question. I always you hear, well, it might be a dumb question. No question is dumb. Why is the sky blue? Not a dumb question. I mean, honestly, it is better to ask the simple questions and get a clear answer than to assume you know the answer and grow from that, because you've taken a wrong turn early, and it's harder to get back to the right road if you took a wrong turn early, and you're too far away from divergence. I say that from a critical previous show perspectives as to those people that are in operational roles or in leadership roles that they were defaulted into without the proper education and skill sets to actually assume the role that the title is responsible for. And now they have a gap that they can't ask those dumb questions because it would be beneath them, or it would create an exposure to other people to exploit on them, that they didn't know something and that they, according to the role, should have known. This is a wonderful thing in the sense of the new opening that I got to experience, was to watch that magic of cohesiveness happen. It was one thing to meet team members in an opening. It was another to build camaraderie with them. That you quickly, you met somebody, knew their name, knew what their job title was, whatever, but their helpfulness to you solidified your perception of them. Your helpfulness to other people solidified your role and perception with others. That magic, cohesive development of being able to openly ask the right questions, to understand what we're trying to do. Not every team member needs to understand profit and loss analysis and budgetary restrictions and traffic numbers on your website and so forth, but they do need to understand that it's being done. They do need to understand what contributes to the success of those promotion of those things by what they do. There is an understanding that has to go along with it. Um, I've talked with clients and then they're like, "Well, Lauren, you want me to teach, my housekeepers revenue analysis?" No, unless they're interested. And sure, why not cultivate from within? Um, I want them to understand that you're doing something that makes sure that they have something to do. And if it means that there's somebody sitting in a chair in front of a computer working on the business of doing business, then that is helpful to them. It's the helplessness of not knowing the goals, the helplessness of not knowing the direction that things are going, and the drudging of doing the same old with no idea of what benefit or detriment it does and how long you need to do it and whether any improvement will happen from it or whatever. The uncertainty of the uncertainties, that doubt, that's the killer of direction and hope and motivation and longevity with a team member, because obviously if they're not understanding why they're doing what they're doing and the mechanisms of the business, they'll eventually find a business that they feel better for. Now that doesn't mean everybody wants to know the universe. I've made that mistake. I've thought that people always wanted to know more, be more, move upwards. Not everyone wants to. There are several people that are very happy doing what they do, and you should relish those people because they truly want to thrive at what they do and keep doing it. And those are the team members that have an understanding of what we're doing. They have an understanding of they're going. They don't need to know all the mechanics of how it's being done. They just need to know that it is being done, and they're contributing to that process. That joy of community is the magic that is like feeds the soul when it comes to those people that enjoy hospitality. That heart of the servant of we're in this together. We drive joy to people that stay with us. We have joy in providing that service. We believe in each other. We trust each other to the degree that we're trying to do the same thing together and that we enjoy the successes of it. That magic solidification of a community in your business, your hotel, your restaurant is so fundamental because I've seen restaurants with incredibly beautiful interior decor, incredibly excellent choice of locations, incredible equipment and everything else fail miserably because the team wasn't solidified. They acted together until it turned into problems, and then the problems turned into who was to blame for the problems, and that meant the dissemination that, well, I don't want to be doing that because then they're going to blame me for it. That lack of culture is what kills it. And what fixes a lot of this is by beginning to ask the right questions. What do they want? Do you understand what we're trying to do? Do you understand our goals? Do you understand the people that are coming into our business? Do you understand what those people are looking for? Those open questions are critical. Now, focusing still on the internalization of asking the right questions is the solicitation of people asking questions. And not every forum people are willing to contribute questions. Open forums, certain people with personalities, stronger personalities perhaps, or ones that are a little more confident in their queries or innocence thereof, will ask questions in front of others. Others have no interest in exposing an unknown for them in front of others, and they prefer to do it in private. Getting a sense of which people are which is a critical component of team leadership. Getting their feedback, asking them questions, focusing on the fact that their perspective is valuable. Where at a time with the room full of hundreds of people, the resort filled with thousands of people, they may feel very small that what they're doing or how they feel or what they see may not be valuable. But if they see the same repetitive problem, but are uncertain about whether to bring it to anybody's attention because who am I, then it may not ever get solved until somebody else sees it. Open solicitation of asking questions in whatever format is most comfortable for your team members is critical for them to feel a part of the team and for you to get a keen insight. One of the joys of being a fly on the wall for what I was able to participate in with my wife as well was we get to listen to team members when they were not around others that would understand what they're talking about and or think that they're being listened to. I call it eavesdropping, I guess, but we're guests at the hotel sitting around and team members without their supervisors or other team members around were talking. And it was good to hear their excitement. It was good to hear their interest in things, and good to hear about their feedback to each other. Like, well, we should really move that over to here. I mean, I know they put it there. We should bring it up. This works better over here, whatever. That focus, that positive focus, not a negative that something was in the wrong location, but just that focus of trying to correct for things that sounded good on paper at first, but in reality don't work the way they were intended, so forth and so on, is wonderful. Because I've witnessed the other. I've witnessed it where it's just a cascading snowball of this. Well, you think that's bad. Well, the wires are hanging out of this. Oh yeah, well you think that. I've heard those things too. Not this place, but I've heard them in other openings. Openings have a uniqueness. One of my coworkers asked me about openings versus maintenances and so forth, and I've had the pleasure of opening new resorts and hotels, reflagging hotels, deflagging hotels, acquiring hotels. Um, and they're the type of people that thrive in the process of a hotel's operation are very segmented. Teams that usually are brought in, strike teams, but for lack of a better term, for most people more familiar with the term, opening teams, I guess you could say as well, are a unique breed. They thrive on the adrenaline of the chaos. They know the direction that everything has to go. They know the benchmarks of things that have to be done by a certain time, or it's going to exacerbate other problems. They know the prioritization of things. They've run that rodeo before, and for that reason, they're very aggressive about getting things done in a good way. But once it gets there, there's no more adrenaline, and they're off and wanting the next one that they have to do again. Now, not everybody for that. Now, opening teams that you will locally hire and so forth, they go through transitional processes. They go through that process opening with the good leadership of those people that know what they're doing, where they're wanting to get done, which is, in my case, of the example I'm talking about, the brand team that comes in that has done this many times, the management company that has done this many times. So the team that's underneath and there for the property learn from and gain confidence from the people that are guiding and directing, with the open understanding that they listen to the things that they may not see from the team that's there. So you have that. And then you have the people that thrive on maintaining. They look to refine the operations. They'll come into a hotel and it's operating, but it's not operating at the level that everyone thinks it should be operating at. So they're there to audit and evaluate and see if there's a tweak to the carburetor, so to speak, and an inflation of a tire here and a adjustment of the gear there to improve the performance of a hotel. And those people are singularly unique as well, because those people thrive on refinement of what's being done. But they too, once they've done all that they can and outlined what they continue to need to do, they need the next project for that. So then you have another group of people that are the runners, the maintainers. They're the ones that thrive on the repetitive durability of the product they provide. They're the docents of the product. They're the ones that maintain the integrity of what the product is doing, the hotel's history, the hotel's functionality, the hotel's review levels, the hotel's quality of service, the hotel's operation. Those people thrive on making sure that the continuity of the program exists. That's the third group. And then you have a fourth group, which is the dissemination and the repair and replacement. Those people are the ones that have to come in and know how to transition from it no longer functioning at the level it needs to be, or is being changed into another function, another brand, another concept, not a brand anymore, whatever that is. Those people have to know that process of literally building the race car or rebuilding the race car as it runs the race in the track. You can't take the car out of the race until the last minute, but you try to do as much as you can before you have to have that happen. And those people complete the cycle of the types of people that you have. Now, in that whole process, you have people that are constantly at the properties for the ups, the downs, the starts, the ends, the beginnings. They're there. Good leadership from any of those types of people mean that they use the resources, those people that are still there going, okay, so we're changing the brand. Okay, what does that mean to me? What does it mean for my day? What does it mean for what we do? Asking those right questions, or predicating what those questions would be so that you have good answers related to the person asking, is incredibly important for any type of person that works within the operations of the hotel, whether it's the opener, whether it's the refiner, whether it's the maintainer, whether it's the disseminator. All of them have to understand how to communicate with the team that's in the transition that they are here to help with. I witnessed it this past week in a very positive first way, that the team was committed to the process. I can tell you right now, in all truthfulness, they will lose people simply through attrition of how businesses operate. Not necessarily because something went wrong, but because people will lose the luster that got them there, that it's not the same after it becomes more common. that adrenaline gets lost. This is the time you find those people, and they may have done so well at their position that their management team might say, you know what, if you're not tied to being at this property, I don't want to lose you for the lack of being excited anymore. Um, we got another project we're going to be doing. Now, usually that doesn't happen immediately because the first year is the first year. There's always a different day, a different week, a different month because you haven't done it before. But after the first year, you're going to have this. Well, we're back at our previous December. How are we in comparison? So forth and so on. And the people begin to sort themselves as to what they like to do. Rising stars get shown out that they get brought into other projects. People that are very good at taking something now that it's running and making it better, they stand out. People that just do good at maintaining the consistency of what has been done once it's being done right, they stand out. The idea is by asking the right questions through the entire process, you don't wait until the end to ask a question because it's a problem now and you have to ask those questions. If that's a situation that you didn't anticipate would go to, now you have to ask those questions. And that's why I want to flip the coin to the second types of asking the right questions. We talked about the asking the right questions to your internal team for a variety of reasons, and I traded about a grand opening being one of those examples as to asking right questions in the format of opening a hotel and a resort. But now it's coming about asking the right questions to your guests. We as marketers do a lot of data-based assumptions. We see numbers and we go to them under the auspices of two conditions: verification of our premise or a thesis, or just refutation of our premise or our thesis. Either something proves what we believe or something disproves what we believe. Now, that may sound like a Captain Obvious statement, and it is, but all too often, more people do the first and not the latter. More people will only look or retain the data that somehow supports their premise. Oh, that number, yes, that validates what I'm thinking. There's more of a need to asking the right questions as to why I am wrong. Why am I looking at this data thinking it is obviously this? What would prove to me that that is not true? And you'll find some. But is it enough to sway your mind saying, well, I found out that this number could be variable by this much, or I see this data is telling me that this is probably the case, but it's probably only the case in December. What about January? Do I have data about it to validate that it lingers the same way? You build what's called a confidence factor. What percentage of what you're looking at, and this is a numerical thing, the numbers I'm looking at is my confidence that it's most likely this versus that. That confidence factor is the guiding force of asking the right questions. And I believe, honestly, the best questions to ask about those things is why I'm wrong rather than why I'm right. Our bias is that we don't want to be wrong. So our bias is we're always going to look for supporting evidence that validates our position, especially when we're dealing with team members. As I said, consensus. I'm presenting an idea, and the first thing I'm going to do is tell you all the reasons why I don't think I'm right. Then why present the idea if you're presenting all the things of why you're not right? Because I want to shoot at the can. I want to toss it up the air. And I want all of us, our collective intelligence, our unique skills, to look at what I'm proposing and tell me why it isn't valid to hold water. It is the magical part, going back to when I used to run hotels, that I had in a couple of hotels that I did run, where it was a collective peer relationship. Houseman had as much input into our dialogue as we're walking and talking down the back halls as a director of sales would have. Here's the conversation. I'm bringing it openly in front of everybody. If you have a perspective on this, share it. Again, no dumb questions, because there are no dumb questions to ask. Any question is a good question. Even if it means that somebody's asking something that is presumptively known for them to answer the question, sometimes the innocence of not understanding the predication gives a clarity to an answer you wouldn't think. It's very true. I've often talked about hiring people that never worked in hotels. They have a clarity of seeing it from the guest perspective that we've long since lost as tainted members of the community, because we know all the excuses that come along with why something doesn't look the way it should look, where the untainted view sees it purely from the customer's perspective. So Houseman's perspective sometimes is the purity of the thought of what you're talking about rather than the absurdity of the conditions you've surrounded it for. I know it sounds odd. The idea is asking the right questions to solidify whether this is good. And that consensus means consensus and risk. If it's mutually decided that despite everyone's perception of it, It seems to be the best solid solution. You have now, in consensus form, shared the risk. You now, as a group, have acknowledged that you, as an individual, have found no legitimate reason to not do this. You can create doubt, you can create uncertainty, but now there's an assumed mutual risk with a clear KPI, a clear goal to what you're about to do. Now, what this does is that should it fail, and they do, the person that had the most doubt doesn't get to walk around and beat their chest saying, I told you guys, because no, they were part of that consensus. They were part of that risk assumption. They were part of the goal setting. So they can't step away from the explosion of failure and say, I was the one that was the most right, because we're all mutually wrong. That asking the right questions at the time when you're talking to a group of people sharing what you also believe is negativity creates that consensus. It also, in a very unique way, eliminates the politicalness of the proposed idea. We get a lot of yes people, and every industry gets yes people. The boss says something, the person is more adamantly able to agree in support of their boss. Yes, boss, that's a brilliant idea. Man, you're so smart. I know it's a bit of an ass kissing conversation of it, but there's a lot of people that are faster to agree than to pause and think of reasons of why to disagree. And I challenge that the second person is more valuable to the leader than the first person, because the person that pauses and truly tries to weigh what their supervisor is proposing is really being relied upon as a professional to give their expertise perspective on what the boss proposed. That's why they're there, is to uh, share with the boss what they know compared to what the boss knows. And for that reason, they need to be more honest about their concerns. They need to ask questions back. Sometimes the best way to get from somebody the realization that they did not propose a solid proposal was to ask questions that make it obvious that these things may not have been considered in that proposal, and or if these conditions were created, that the proposal would not work the way it was intended. When you do that, it's a self-awareness. That's a good leadership back to leadership. I'm not going to just sit here and tell you all the things that you're wrong with what you said. That creates an adversarial conversation. Instead, I'm going to ask rhetorical questions that may bring obviously the concerns I see, the inherent issues that I see by you proposing this, by asking questions back for you to see what I also think are risk factors that you may not have considered in your proposal. That trusting dialogue of honesty back without adversarial engagement is a lost art. I see so many times emails of and somebody's face like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, you're comparing weird things here. I don't think you have a clear picture of what I think. And then because you attack me, I attack you back, and it just escalates. Having the consensus and having the ability to ask the right questions back creates an open dialogue of it, where it's no shame in saying, wow, that ended up being a really crappy idea. Thank you for pointing out the facts of what I didn't think about. That's why you bring it in front of other people. So when a leader comes in with a proposal of something and shares what they think are already possible reasons why it's not a good idea, that dilutes the impact of the people that say yes too quickly and the people that are too critical too quickly, to an idea of he's being honest with this or she's being honest with this. She's laying it on the table saying, hey, here's my idea. Here's why I think there's problems with it. Do you see them big enough of a problem that it wouldn't work? Or do you just see them as minor problems that will create issues, but it won't overall harm the project that I'm proposing? That honesty in a dialogue creates and solicits asking the right questions, because now those questions breed other ideas. So now, going back to my when you ask the right questions, we've talked about internalization. We continue to talk about internalization. Let's talk about externalization. We ask, we do surveys, we do questions. If anybody's been a lounge lizard or a lobby lizard in their lives as a manager at a hotel or a resort, the role is a simple one. You're a representation of the property to engage with your guests in a one-on-one relationship opportunity in a common space. As a general manager at checkouts, it was always we always had a lobby lizard, whether it was myself or whether it was our exec team, and it was purposely meant to engage the guests. How was your stay? Is there anything you think that we can improve upon? What was the highlight of your stay? What was the best part of your stay? Was there anything that, how can, when we see you again, who of our team stood out most for you positively? Was there anything that happened that we should be aware of? Whatever the variety of questions were. Or simply there as a resource for people to know that we're there, name badge included, dressed up nicer than usual, to come up and share their perspective of things. That is a preemptive ask the right question moment. You're literally in the role to ask or be asked questions. Now, if you wait until the person's gone, your value proposition of that diminishes exponentially the farther and longer they're away from your resort. Because once they walk out the door, they're thinking about where they're going to next, or what they're doing next, or the things that are in front of them operationally for their day or whatever is next. And then being dragged back to you about, so what did you think about your stay? You're going to get, if you do get answers, which if anybody talks to you about post-stay surveys, it's a fractional percentage compared to pre-arrival opening engagement emails, is often also shortened. The only time it's not shortened in answers is if there was an axe to grind about something, or an overwhelming success that they want to make sure you've been brought to your attention. So you're literally getting the polarization of extremes as the real catalyst of a post-stay engagement. So the sooner you can ask the right questions of somebody while it's still a part of their existence at that moment, the more you're going to get more information between those two polarizations. You're going to get more thoughtful engagement by asking while it's still on the front of their mind, while they're in the awareness of experiencing what you are. That goes to your entire team as well. The housekeeper in the hallway, the 10-20 rule, the engineer who's on some service assignment, tech when it comes to engineers, fixing and helping with any issue in the room itself, should it happen, it does, Wi-Fi engagements, what have you. All of our touch points are opportunities for us to have engagement. Same too, also while they're in the resort or the hotel, creating communication with them to ask the right questions. Not huge open-ended questions. We all want to ask, what's the likelihood of you returning? Our NAP score. Okay, got it. And we all love, let's leave an open big box question of what was good? What is it that we did good? If I wanted to take my vacation time to write a 5-paragraph essay about my stay at your resort, please don't ask me while I'm there. Now, I know that sounds contrary to me saying engage with them while you're there. Follow me on this. Those types of longer questions come after you've engaged with them for shorter questions while it's still front of mind at your property. Keep it very short and concise. If you're playing Lobby Lizard, or if you're a manager on the walk, or a team member that's on the walk and a guest is around, go, hi, is everything good for you today? Is there anything I can help you with? How is your day? Whatever. And especially if you see them in a sort of point of distress, we all radiate that when there's something problem. Our key's not working at the door. We got the scowly face. We're looking down the hallway and we see a housekeeper like, oh, I hope they'll get my attention. You want them to have your attention. If you're looking because you have an empty drink, looking around, you're walking around, oh, hey, you're looking for another drink? What is it you're getting? I'll go text about you. Do you know where you point to your server? I'll go to them directly. Whatever it is, be very concise. Asking the right question. I know it sounds really simple. Asking the right question whether they need a refill. Yeah, it's the right question. The less they have to think that they're not getting service, the better their overall experience keeps getting and move forward. Okay. If there's something that you see where a guest is trying to get attention of a team member and the team member isn't acknowledging it, intervene. Ask the right question. I'm sorry, it looks like you're trying to get their attention. Can I help you? No, I need him to give me. Okay, I'll be happy with it. Where were you sitting? I'll come back with you. Whatever it is. Engagement by asking the right questions. It also means when you're asking opinions that they're very concise. Has any of our team members stood out for you today? Was the room what you expected? Was the food as good as you had hoped? The contrived ways that our team answers. I'm glad everything was perfect. Don't make the assumptions that I'm not talking about something that it was perfect. I just don't want to slow my day down and get into a long length explanation or an expansion of an issue where everybody in the Brotherhood needs to come talk to me because I want to let you know that it isn't perfect. Reading those signals and understanding that maybe there's a little bit more where it's like sometimes a housekeeper asking if everything's okay. The guest perception might be, what's the housekeeper going to do about it? Now, if you cultivate your team correctly, the team will exude the fact that they can do anything they need to. One of the properties I was incredibly proud of being a part of was up in Victoria. And they had this thing where every team member was imbibed with making a $20 decision every day. Without question, they could, and this goes back a few years, so $20 was a lot more worth a lot more than it is now. They could do whatever it took up to $20 without having to get permission to do anything. And if it was going to be over $20, and if it was a big enough issue that even by them helping, they feel that they would let their team know that this was an issue for them, they would always share the fact that they did something. It's solved. They got the best performance star from their brand repetitively because of the empowerment that they gave their team and the trust that they gave their team, that you don't have to ask for permission. If it means you spending up to $20 to get something done, do it. Better that it's done and not done and having a guest that's not satisfied. And better that you didn't go to a team member going, what the heck was that? $20? What? Who said you could go start spending our money without permission? Did you go to your supervisor first? That trust, that empowerment to your team reflected in their quality of service to the guests. It also meant that when they asked questions, the point I'm trying to make with this is that the guest knew this person is there to solve the problem, not report the problem. And so if you make your team empowered to do those things, then the guest feels it. Hey, this housekeeper isn't just asking to be kind, like, oh, is everything okay? Oh, yeah, everything's fine. Thank you. Because you don't think they're going to solve your problem. But they're like, I notice how can I help you? And they're that noticeable persistence or keen interest in trying to help comes through. They're asking the right question. And the guest says, oh, I don't know if you can help me. Oh, no, please let me know. And it's like, well, and then may talk about something that has nothing to do with housekeeping. But the housekeeper says, I'm sorry. And you're in room, okay, where can we find you? Are you heading down to the pool, the beach, whatever, oh, I'll be back. I said, okay, I'll get back with you about that. Or our team, one of us will get back with you about that. And they go and take care of it. Hey, the person in room 365, they didn't like their food and breakfast this morning. And they didn't get a chance to tell anybody because we were so busy, blah, 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 blah. And let it roll. Let it go at that point. Because then the other more empowered team members can take it on and figure out a way that they can address the issue if it's addressable. Not every issue is resolvable. Sometimes just a perception issue. If I didn't like this, can we do anything about it? No. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. But the idea is asking the right questions, and more importantly, how and when to ask what questions. If you're asking somebody while they're there to experience being there. They're not there to basically give you free advice, which is what a question is. They're not there to give you free service of reviewing you in multi-question format when they're paying for the privilege of being there and enjoying it. So you have to be very sensitive to the fact of when you are asking a question and how much of it you're asking. How many of us have gone to take what we think is a helpful survey and it turns into a 30-minute drawing out, like when you're 10 minutes into it and you see if they even have a progress bar. A lot of them don't even show you a progress bar, which is terrible to say that they don't do. That you realize like, oh my gosh, I've wasted 10 minutes. I thought that was all I was going to take. I'm only a third of the way through. And if I stop, I've wasted the 10 minutes purely, or I can just keep going, hopefully get it done. But then the accuracy of their answers goes down because it's just sometimes they're just clicking to get some answers out. Oh, I know if I open this question, it's going to ask me 3 more. So no, I don't want to, everything was great, because they don't want to get into those rabbit holes of things where you're like, oh, it's only 10 question survey, but each question has 5 other alternatives. Be realistic about your expectations of surveys. We've talked about it on the show many times about progressive engagements. Ask very large directive questions first, brief and concise and succinct. Don't give me a paragraph to write. Give me an option to choose and make it minimal. Don't make it variable. The more variations you get, the more statistically irrelevant my answer, because I'll tend to be above slightly or below slightly the average mean. Very rarely will I polarize a top end or a low end number. I'll be some variation of middle. It's just a human habit, really, unless there's something so bad or something so good, or there's such a disinterest in doing the survey that they just go, everything's great, fantastic, wonderful, good, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, get me off this menu, I'm done. The idea is asking the right questions, the timing, and the type of question. The progressive questions are asked very succinct questions that are easily answerable, clearly defined, and quick to solve. Then, if and always, leave them the option to expand on anything they're interested in. If they want to take the time, they will. If they don't want to take the time, they won't. Don't think that because they didn't say something, there's not something to be said. Then the next engagement is take what they said or answered and apply another layer to it. In addition to, was there any team member that stood out? Tom. Okay. Thank you so very much. If you want to elaborate, please do. But thank you so much for letting us know. We'll make sure that he gets acknowledged for that. Okay. And then maybe the next engagement with him is like, hey, you mentioned that you had a great engagement with Tom, but Tom said we brought it to his attention and we awarded him and so forth, so that we might be able to duplicate what Tom did. What did he do? Glad you asked. Didn't have the time the first time you asked me, but I'm happy to tell you now. Or very quickly say, well, he just was always attentive to what I asked or something. Great. We'll make sure that gets shared so that other team members realize that guests appreciate what Tom did and want to replicate it. And maybe we'll have Tom tell about how he does that. By a guest feeling that they're helping in a contributory way that you're actually acting on, solidifies their perpetual interest in giving you continued information. It's the same type of questions you ask about guests when it comes to what they want. Most guests don't know what they want. They want a good stay. They want it to be not too expensive. And they want everything that you said you do, which is why they chose you, to be real and you live up to the promise that you made about the execution of what you said was going to be a part of it. What happens most with our engagements with our guests is that we fall short of what we said we are. That the pool was not the super pristine picture with just one loving staged couple sitting on the edge with their drinks on the edge, laughing and giggling while they have the whole pool to themselves. Instead, it is a mountain of hundreds of people in a massive pool with screaming kids and servers that are trying to negotiate with a tray of drinks through a hazard zone of people sitting and reclining at various stages around the pool or the beach or whatever. That the room, as pristine as it looked in the images, was really a little bit more tired. The beds not as comfortable as you had hoped, and the TV was a lot smaller than planned. Whatever it is, the idea that expectations are met is a condition of what people's acceptance is of why they're decided with you. Yes, people choose by price, and they know that by the price they're going to have different expectations, but there is expectations. And those need to be lived up from a service perspective, and those need to be endorsed by asking the right questions of the guests at the right time. So asking the right questions solves a lot of things. One of the other things that we don't often ask in an intangible way, and we can do this with our guests either pre-arrival in preparation for them staying with us, or even earlier than that in their expectations of us, or even earlier than that as to the education to them, or even earlier than that in the discovery of us, is what do they want? What's the desire, the purpose of what they want? A lot of that comes from their engagement. The right way of asking the questions isn't always with a question mark at the end of the sentence. Sometimes asking the question mark is by how you present the options and what they respond to. If you give 3 colors and a person picks a color, you didn't ask them, is green their favorite color? You gave them choices and they picked green. Now you know green is their preferred color. Asking the questions, asking good questions, is a lot of times not about the question mark as it is the conditions of the choices that you present. By engaging with a guest in your emails and giving different aspects of the email and what they engage with allows us to isolate their interest and put them into a cluster of groups that we then test if that is accurate or just a curiosity of their part that they clicked it on purpose or just out of curiosity or whatever, by presenting more refined content about that engagement in front of them. If they engage with it, then it validates it. If they don't engage with it, it might be because the offer or the information is not relevant to them. So it's not like you abandon it, but that progressive questioning is then present other options where it's now one of the choices with other information about it that maybe not be as much date sensitive as it is destination sensitive, whatever the context of the content is, and see if they still pick it out of other choices. There's a card game I used to do with my sales teams, and it was a matter of you guide them to the choice that you want them to have. And it was a card trick that basically you had them pick a card out of a grid of cards you put on the table, and you just said, is it in this row or that row? And they would pick the row. What they didn't notice is as you're talking to them, you're picking up the row that they indicated their card was in a sequenced way, that it's always the third or the fourth card. So in the deck of the cards that you have, every card in that row will show up in the sequence you picked up. Say it's the third time, every third card you picked out of their row. So when you lay them back down in the pattern, now you've created a vertical row that was identical to the horizontal row that they picked. So when they pick the row again, you know the card that they picked. Then at that point, it's just keeping track of that card. So you pull them all together and stuff, and you pull them all together, and you know where that card is and the way you picked up the cards. And then you lay them all face down into sections of 4 cards, but you know where their card is. So no matter how they choose the cluster, okay, pick 2 clusters. If they pick 2 clusters and their cards not in it, they get moved away. If they pick 2 clusters and their cards in it, the other 2 get moved away. You understand what I'm saying? So eventually they're left down to the one card, and you flip it, is that your card? And they're going to go, oh, it's not so much they made a choice as it is you guided them to the choice that they made. The idea that by giving options and seeing how they engage and then mixing that option with other options and see if they still engage with it is a way of asking questions without putting a question mark at the end of it. It's by assigning the value to them that says, these people, based on this geography, based on this category of people, demography wise, are interested categorically in these things. That's good for the engagement of that guest, but it's also incredibly good for the expansion of guests just like them. That's what we call them, lookalike audiences, is that ability to define other people like them that now, instead of broadcasting in general what we're talking about in the hopes that once people engage, we create this finite filtering of identification, we now can just go to the finite definition filtering and apply it to our marketing with the same caveat. Let's put it out there with also other options to see if we're using the right bait, so to speak, from a fishing perspective. Are we putting the right thing in the water for the fish that are in that water to be interested in? And if it is, then we have a better conversion percentage because we hit the mark earlier and sooner rather than having to pay for all the discovery that it took to come up with this filter. And we put it into the market and it's engaging immediately. Now that's a smaller audience than we started with, but the conversion exponentially is much more valuable. If we're getting 1% of 10,000 people or 10% of 1,000 people, tell me the difference mathematically. The idea is it cost us more money to get in front of the 10,000 people, it cost us less money to get in front of the 1,000 people, but we made the same amount of money because the conversion value was the same. So the idea is asking the right questions means more than just everything else we talked about internally and peer level. It also means our engagement with our guests in a firsthand way, and also means our engagement with our guests in a preemptive way up to their actual arrival. And in asking the right questions in their post-stay, progressive questions, ways of presenting content of what they experienced or how they engaged with us, but ask the next one, because trust has to get built. If you broadcast to somebody, okay, now you stay with us, I want you to answer this 5-page questionnaire, blah, 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 kind of like the Marriott first questionnaire was. The idea that Bill Marriott did that was because he thought people were generally interested in improving his business. And they gave that feedback in the hopes that he would improve upon what he was doing based on what they felt he should do. Then people quickly learned that anytime they didn't respond positively, they were compensated. So now it's best to go over and tell them all the things that are wrong because you'll get something for it. It kind of cannibalized itself as to its purpose and intent. The same true is with reviews. Rewarding people for their engagement with us should be a natural for us. They took the time to basically teach us for free what we need to do better. We should reward them for what they did in a positive comment and a negative comment. Whatever it is, we reward them by engaging with them more specific value propositions to them. We don't have to give them a coffee coupon all the time or a free beverage coupon all the time. What we do is acknowledge and recognize them in a way that's valuable to them for the extra effort that they did in letting us be aware of both good and bad things that from their perception. Giving them a discount offer because of the engagement they gave us, because they're on a list that they trust us that we're going to send them things that are going to be helpful to them. Like, you know what, we so much appreciate you having been a previous guest. And of course, you've helped us understand better how to provide better service for you. Here's your offer. It's not in our market. It's not something you can go to another website and see. Is it just for you? I'd love to say that it is, but most likely it's for people like you. That's the reward system that comes from that as well. So, uh, good. We hammered this pretty well for what seems to be a simple topic of asking the right questions. You see that it's multidimensional as to what questions get asked and to whom you ask them. Your internal teams, which is the half of the equation, and your guests, which is the other half of the equation. Your way of providing service, improving what you do, versus defining service and improving what you do for the guests on the other side. So asking the questions is critical. And like I said, it doesn't always come with a question mark at the end of the sentence. So with that, for everyone watching us on our shared platforms, Facebook pages, multiple platforms and so forth, thank you so much for that. YouTube channels, thank you so much for that. LinkedIn, which is my only profile page, one that runs for that. Thank you for watching me there. X, we're there as well, live, and also even on Twitch if you're using game consoles for media, which brings us to our TV station, which you can find on Roku TV, Apple TV, Apple Plus TV, Apple TV, Google TV, Amazon TV, Fire Sticks, and so forth. Our app, iOS app, and our Google Play app, the hospitality channels, all of that. You can go to our web version of our channel at talktravel.tv. That is the portal to our TV channel from there. We're in 209 countries with our TV station. Thank you so much for those that watch us globally. We do translate it into 11 languages. Our highest population languages, we use that on a regular basis. So every once in a while, we'll change one to another sometimes. We have our audio podcast. We'll do one afterwards. We'll have some tools about surveys and questions today on our podcast, how to create good questions. Our podcast is on 39 channels. It's also on our radio station. Hospitalityradio.com is our web version of it, but Hospitality Radio is our location for it. We're in multiple countries around the world on broadcasting for it. So if you watch us in any of all that, thank you so very much. If you're a hospitality marketing professional and want to join a peer level group, we have the hospitality marketing.club. Peer level people ask great questions, insights, and programs with us. Is not there to teach you basics of marketing. You have to already be in the marketing space to be a part of it. We actually send you a questionnaire, a quiz. You have to pass to be able to be sent an invite. And it's been a fun conversation, but we have a lot of the content we do with this comes from the Hospitality Marketing Club. The other is that we rebroadcast our live show for more convenient time zones around the world. We do rebroadcast our show at 11:30 a.m. Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends. It's a more compatible time zone for that range, as well as 11:30 a.m. London time, UK, for our European, EU, and our Middle East friends. Try to make it a little bit easier for watching. Although with that said, we have lots of people from the world in odd hours watching us live now. So thank you all very much for that privilege of being of interest for you to watch and listen to us. So with that, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.